be here. So, yeah, and we want a record of how obnoxious I can be. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have a background in art history. That's my first degree. Very specifically, my focus was pre-Columbian art. There's a lot of jobs in that field. But I really like anything that is non-Western art. I studied a lot of Greek art, even though that is Western art. I did, probably a whole year of Greek art, and then I did a whole seminar on sexuality in Greek art. We're only going to yeah. And I have 2 slides to show for that whole semester. Yeah. That's my background. I also have my master's in museum studies. I worked at the Putnam Museum for several years as their registrar, so that's a fancy way of saying I did a lot of paperwork in their collections and curatorial department. So anything in the museum that moved, I knew about it, which is very exciting. I've touched Princess Diana's dresses. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And then I got my MBA, because I like marketing and stuff. Thought it'd be handy, Seemed like a practical degree after the others. I teach. I've been teaching museum studies and art history at St. Ambrose since 2017, thereabouts, and I just recently got promoted to assistant professor. It did not get me any more pay, but I get a really cool title. So respect, yeah. So tonight, I'm very excited because I get to drink while I teach, and you guys get to drink, and that's pretty cool, right? But tonight we are going to talk a little bit about Greek art. We're going to try to... Once? Okay, all right. Well, they missed my fabulous intro, right? I know Greek art is famous for its pottery, but we don't really have a lot of time for the pottery. There's just so much. I work in pottery when I can, but we're going to be looking at a lot of the sculptural pieces and the monuments. And again, why can't I just advance when I want? There we go. Okay, so we're going to start at the beginning with Mycenae. And for my map lovers, it is right there. Like, there's Athens, there's Olympia, right there in the middle of the two. So Mycenae is a major center from way back in the day. It was primarily a military stronghold on the Acropolis. This is where we're looking at like epic literature like Homer's Iliad and the Trojan War. And this particular archaeological site was excavated by Heinrich Schliemann in the mid-1870s. Now, what do we want to know about him? Well, he was an amateur. Okay, he was very interested in Troy and all the Homeric stories. He also has a mansion in Athens, which we're going to go see. Yeah, you say it's cool until you learn more about him, and now we're like, yeah, we're going to his house to spit on it, right? So he is famous for discovering Troy and then destroying it. Okay, so he did what the Greeks could not do, and he just leveled all the walls, okay, because he was such a horrible archaeologist, right? Just went in and destroyed it. He discovered Priam's treasure in 1873, and then he smuggled it out of Turkey, so that was part of the Ottoman Empire at the time, and then he took all this stuff into Greece, and then Turkey sued him, and then I don't quite understand exactly what happened, but Priam's treasure just bounced around all of Europe, and then in 1945, it ended up in the Pushkin Museum, and Russia said, we're keeping this as compensation for war destruction, and it's been there ever since. He also found the mask of Agamemnon, and that was also at Mycenae. And he found it in a shaft with graves and a bunch of skeletons and gold. Now, of course, there's questions about authenticity for the mask and Priam's treasure, because this guy planted archaeological discoveries and then discovered them. So questions about that. But anywho, back to the Mycenaean art. You can see that this is a very, very ancient culture, and these guys were the forerunners to the Greeks, but they came after the Minoans. So that is our time period, if you're looking at. These guys did a lot of work with gold. So they were burying their kings and their dead in really deep grave shafts filled with lots of treasure. They also had fabulous weapons with inlay of gold and silver. And so this is one of their highlight pieces. Like, this is what their culture is known for, this gold funerary mask. And why is it fabulous? Well, this guy's got a beard. He's got a mustache. Look at him, right? It is made from one sheet of gold, which is very impressive. And this is the first attempt at a lifelike sculpture for this culture. There was questions about the authenticity of it, like I just said, with our man there. Supposedly he planted it. It is genuine. They found out that it was in fact genuine, but it wasn't Trojan, to the absolute disappointment of Schliemann. It was not Trojan. It was actually significantly older than that. So about like 300 to 400 years older. This particular site is known for these impressive, huge walls. They're made out of huge limestone blocks. They are unworked or minimally worked, and yet somehow they all fit together, or the gaps are filled in with smaller pieces. Just, with the bare minimum work, this is what you can accomplish, right? So what's going on here, what is so exciting about this pile of stones, is that the really big stones reduce the amount of the amount of pressure on the joints, and that reduces the weakness. And there's also no mortar here. Ooh, very cool. So this is just physics at work, which is very exciting. The legend is that these were built by the Thracian mythical Cyclops, the one-eyed giants, because there was absolutely no way that man could do such things. Right? So there's this whole crazy legend that, built by the Cyclops, right? One of the magnificent pieces here is the Lion's Gate. And then this is like the outer gate. And what we've got here are two very large monoliths with one lintel. So 3 pieces of stone. Right, that's exciting. But it's a corbelled arch, and what we have here is this empty triangle space, and they removed that to relieve some of the pressure. And then they filled it in with this fabulous piece of 2 lions with a column in the middle. Unfortunately, the heads of the lions are gone, but their tufts of tails are still there. The column that you see in the middle more than likely represents a deity, and you will see this throughout various cultures, including the Indus Valley, all the way through India. Like, a column represents a god, or in the case of India, it's an early representation of the Buddha. So we have that culture going all the way back here and seeing things like that. The lionesses are often an emblem of kings, and it's a symbol of power for their subjects and foreigners. Basically, like, you come through those gates and you're like, oh, you should be scared. There's lions here. So that's exciting. So what we've got here, it's a 20-foot channel, and then the gate itself is only 10 feet wide. But what you would have on top, you'd have archers on both sides. So while you're marching down the middle, you've got archers just waiting, little trigger happy. So that is quite an impressive and imposing piece of architecture right there. The site is also known for these fabulous tombs. time is funny. Like back in the day, they want to make up all these really crazy stories about the sites. So they often said like, oh, this is the treasury of Atreus, who was the king at the time in the Peloponnese, and he would have been the father of Agamemnon and Menelaus, right? Remember our Trojan War? Yeah, yes, right? Okay. Just watch Troy with Brad Pitt. It's fine. Yeah. So accurate, right? The other thought, like, okay, if treasury isn't cool enough, maybe it's the tomb of Agamemnon himself, which was the king, and Menelaus' brother. So you got the two kings, right? Helen's husband. Yeah, the Trojan War, because Paris stole Helen. Yeah. Yeah, okay, we got some people. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. But it's probably just an ordinary tomb, not belonging to either one of these dudes. But they're cool anyway. They're these fabulous beehive-shaped tombs, and they're made in a circular pattern to form a dome, and they have this very long passageway going in. And this is what the inside looks like, and we're going to go in there. Yeah. So we have another relieving triangle at the top there, and then we have this wonderful corbel dome. And again, these stones are very large, so this is quite impressive. And this is the largest and the most elaborate tomb. I know it doesn't look very elaborate because there's no art, but it's big stones in a circle, okay? That's impressive for this time, you guys. All right. All right. So now we're gonna fast forward a little bit, and there are a few things that you need to know about ancient Greek culture. The first is that there was slavery. It was natural, and they said that it was beneficial. Okay, I know that's very different from what. Yeah, like. In fact, in classical Athens, the population consisted of 15 to 25% slaves, which is that's pretty high, right? Women were not considered to be equal. Egypt, women were equal and better. Okay? Yes. Greece, they were like, nope, you are less than. You must stay in the house, and you stay in a special part of the house. So no roles in politics or anything like that. Women literally just stayed in the house. Even the nobility, the females stayed in the house. So with that said, society was male-dominated, and it was very elite, with men having all the rights and representing the family. It was basically a Greek boys' club. Yeah. So what we need to know about Greek art is that this is the first time in history that we start to see art for art's sake. All of non-Western art is functional. It serves a purpose of some sort, whether it's funerary, religious, political, or you're wearing it. It has a function. And this is the first time in history that we see something because it's pretty. Because I like it. So art without function here. So it's non-utilitarian. We also start to see this concept of techne, which is a combination of technique and technology, so how things are made. We are also looking at the idea of excellence here. So it's anthropocentric, meaning it's focused on people and the importance of human accomplishment, so what people can achieve. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to emulate perfection. Now, all of this is the foundation of Western art. So not our non-Western stuff, which is what my background's in, so why am I here? I don't yeah, anyway. But I'm supposed to tell you that all of this influenced the future of almost every single art movement going forward. So the Renaissance, the Baroque, Neoclassical, the White House, all looks Greek. There's a reason for that, because it's good. It's good stuff. But even though Greek art is the beginning of Western art, it has its foundation in non-Western cultures. Egypt is considered non-Western, right? So we've got Egypt. We have cultural influences from Assyria. and even as far as the Orient, okay? So, memorize this. We got this. We're seeing this. Cha-cha! This is Greek art. Does this look familiar? Right? Like, ooh! Go back, we've got a figure of a man standing, we've got a sphinx, we've got some pottery with lines on it. We have a man standing, we've got a sphinx, we've got pottery with lines on it. So the foundation of Western art comes from non-Western cultures. That's it, that's all you have to know, right? Most historians don't like this, but I'm just telling you guys how it is. All right. So we're going to start a little bit with geometric art, and this is where we start to see a lot of the vase painting. And there's these fabulous horizontal bands and patterns here, and it resembles basket weaving. Where did the basket weaving come from? Women. Yeah. And this is all we will see for the contributions of women in Greek art. This is it. Right? I know, right? But we have these really fabulous abstract motifs. So we've got humans and animals. You can see that there's some warriors there next to the horses with their funky shields. At this point in time, there's no monumental sculpture, but it's coming, right? We do see a lot of grave goods here, which is very exciting because I like dead things, right? All right, so Greek society, the religion is very personal, it's direct, and it's present. It is just everywhere. So what we've got are temples everywhere. They're just dominating the urban landscape. We also have the agora, which we will be going to, and this is the common public space for civic and commercial activity. So that's where you're going to see your government, your politics, and you're going to see your merchants. And then what we need to understand is at this time, Greece was divided into itty-bitty societies. Each individual one was called a polis. So these are independent city-states. And they sort of formed naturally due to Greece's landscape. So it's in the middle of a valley. It's, cut off by a river. The big ones that we hear about, Athens and Sparta. Spartan art. Well, it doesn't exist. I'm done. So, there is only one piece of Spartan art in existence, and it is a simple cup. Why was this? Well, what do we know about Sparta? Yeah, eventually. But what do we know about them before they lost? This is Sparta, right? War. They were focused on military and war. We don't have time for art. So nothing pretty, everything is functional here. So Athens, exact opposite. They're all like, oh, pretty, right? So, so very, very different here. So no Spartan art, that's what you need to know. So now all the art that we're going to be looking at is very Athenian. And we're going to move on to archaic art, which is about 600 BC to 480 BCE. Geometric designs are out. What we're looking at now is creativity and innovation. And we want narratives, right? We like a good story. And we're starting to see elements of daily life being represented. So we're capturing those moments. We start to see this idea of realism truly take off. So with that, we have life-size statues. They're starting to come about. So realism and naturalism, they're coming on the scene. For architecture, we see the first two big ones, Doric and Ionic. So those orders are introduced. And this is what you need to know about Doric and Ionic. The capitals, right here, this is the capital. And for the Doric order, it's just a simple cushion. Very plain, very regal though. With the Ionic, that's where you start to see the fancy scrolls in their capital. The frieze is this piece right up here. And in Doric, we have these 3 bars here. And then we have this empty space. So this is called the triglyph. And this is this empty space here. This is the metope, right? So we have our inserts going in here. So our art's going here, and then it's divided. Over here, we just have this long, continuous piece, which is really great for extensive narratives. They just keep rolling, right? So we're rolling and scrolling. Yeah, okay. Write that down. So what we start to see here in the Archaic period, like I said, we start to see the life-size statues. And we have this concept called the archaic smile. Look at their faces. That's the archaic smile. But these particular figures, these kuros, this is funerary art. So that's its purpose here. There were boys, and all the males were depicted as nudes, frontal pose, and they've got one leg moving. So they look like Egyptian figures, but we're starting to see motion, okay? The women, the kore, they were never nude. They were wearing this garment here called a peplos, and we will see lots of draped fabric. So this is the very beginning, and I'm gonna show you how it advances later on. Okay, now this is the second thing you really need to know about Greek art. It was color. Everything was color. They were using temperas and frescoes, and they were using a method called encaustic, which is you have pigments and you mix them with wax, and then you burn it in to the sculpture. And so you can see remnants of color in her hair. This is like a recreation of what she would have looked like fully painted. So, Greece. Oh, my God, right? It is a Technicolor riot, and it is absolutely hideous. Look at the leggings on that archer. This looks like something that came out of the 60s and 70s, that real psychedelic. So, but this is Greece. Yes. For us, Greece, we only know it as the marble, like the white marble, but the whole ancient world was colored. So why does this shock us? Well, because it's unrealistic and it's hideous in color. Isn't it just, God, awful? What did they do? But all the color was gone before the Renaissance. So that is a very short period of time where the ancient world was colored. And then the British didn't do it any favors because they went in and they scrubbed them off. Right, because it's hideous, right? But again, Greece and Rome were not the only places in the ancient world that were colored. Egypt, their influencer, was also a Technicolor riot. They had a better color scheme. But when you go to all the temples and tombs in Egypt, everything is colored, right? So why should we be shocked at anything different? Right? So that's what you need to know. Greece was full color. So moving along a little bit, we have classical art, okay? And we're looking at 480 to 400 BCE. This is the golden age of Greece. What we see here is the defeat of the Persians by the Greeks. So that's the time period we're looking at. And the big thing that comes out of classical Greek art is a term called contrapposto, which means that there's a shift in weight to make this S form, right? So if you're standing here and you kind of, right? I got an S going here with my leg out, my hip out. I'm curvy, right? So that's contrapposto for you in a nutshell. But we also see the canon of proportion being developed, and that is harmony with statues and architecture. And then my time to shine, right? My semester of sexuality in ancient Greek art, okay? They were doing it, right? Yeah. And they were doing it every which way. Every generation thinks they invented sex, right? Well, they were doing the same thing, right? They made a lot of art depicting sex. And why? Well, they had to have this fun art at their symposiums, which is The symposium means like we're drinking together, and it's guys. It's just guys, because women are in the other part of the house, right? So we got a bunch of guys together. We're sitting on couches, we're reclining, and we're drinking. We're telling jokes, we're singing songs, and then some, right? We got the ladies coming to party, right? So we have a lot of this Greek pottery that has real sexy scenes on it, because we're going to drink, and then when we get to the bottom of our cup, we get a little picture, right? Like, yeah, so like, I don't know, when I was a kid, I had like these pudding bowls. Okay, my grandma made pudding in them. I don't really. They were little bowls, and when you got to the bottom, there was Cinderella there, and then the prince in the other one, and it was always like, oh, which one am I gonna get? But it's the same. They're like, oh, which one am I gonna get? and then they're gonna take that cup and they're gonna show a girl and be like, I want that. Yeah. There's a lot of sexy art in Greece. Supposedly wine was the center of the symposium, but let's be real, okay? So following that up, were there gay Greeks? Yeah, but they don't have a word for it. Right? So, if you don't have a word for it, it doesn't exist, right? So, the Greeks had no word for homosexuality. They were doing it. They called it pederasty, which is a socially acknowledged romantic relationship between an older male, the Orestes, and the younger male, the Eromenos, right? And that was usually a boy in his teens. I know everyone's like, oh, that sounds a lot like grooming. It was really a mentor-mentee relationship. So it was okay. Sure, right? What I want to say here is that we cannot put our modern concepts and ideas into the past. They don't belong there. Okay? Things were different. All right? But yes, you bet, homosexuality, it was a thing, all right? They just didn't have a word for it. Was there prostitution? Oh, yeah, you bet. Males, females, prostitutes of all kinds. There was also slavery and accounts of slaves being treated very badly, and, but again, can't put our modern ideals into the past, okay? So, yes, you will see gay Greek art. At least we better. We're going to be seeing gay Greek art, right? Okay, yeah. I'm going to be disappointed if we don't. So no judgment, right? No judgment. All right. One of the other sites that we're going to is Olympia, which is all the way on the other side across from Athens. And this is the site. So Olympia is an ancient Greek complex, and it is home to the Olympic Games. And the first one was held in 777 BCE. And it happened every 4 years to honor Zeus, right? And the goal of the Olympic Games were to unite all the different polises, right? Poli? I think it's poli, right? And this helps solidify Greek identity. So we're all coming together, we're competing against each other, and we're all Greeks. Yeah, sounds good. Athens, Sparta, we've got our differences. We like art, you like war, but we're all coming together, we're all Greek, okay? This particular site has 760 structures, right? And we will be seeing the places where the Greek athletes trained, their locker rooms, and their baths. Ooh. Where the gay stuff was happening. So, everyone wants to know, like, if they actually exercised in the buff. The answer is yes. Yes, they did. They exercised and competed naked. The word gymnos means naked or nude. So, when you say, I'm going to the gym, you're basically saying I'm going to get naked. Yeah. So, but why? Why did they exercise naked? This seems very impractical, and they were clearly a smart people. But they did it for the appreciation of the male body. And it was also a tribute to the gods, stripped down, bare all. Here you go, God. Sure. Why was exercise? There was such a big focus on exercise in the Greek world, and they did it to improve their appearance. They were very vain, and they were preparing for war. At any moment, there could be war, and you had to be physically ready. Okay, we don't live that way today. Okay, and also we want to maintain good health in old age. I'm not doing any of these. I am not trying to improve my appearance exercising. I'm not getting ready for war. Old age seems like a long ways off. So, anyway, I'm not exercising. All right, at this particular complex, there's the Temple of Zeus, and it is the Doric order. What was Doric? What do we need to know about Doric? Cushion, yes, just a flat cushion. One of the interesting things about this particular structure, well, it's not there anymore, so that's what we're going to go see. We're going to go see nothing. It doesn't exist anymore. But they had these imperfections in the limestones, and they filled it with a stucco, so it gave the appearance of marble. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's the response I want. Oh, yeah, that's what I want. But we also are introduced to the rule of classical architecture here. And that rule is the number of columns on the long side must be one more than double the number of columns on the short side. So we have 6 here and 13 here. And if my algebra is correct, that would be the formula. The width times 2 plus 1, because you do parentheses first, yes, equals the length. Yes. Okay, so that's the rule. Yeah. Now, if this particular place still existed, this is what it would have looked like. Yeah. It doesn't look like that. But we've salvaged quite a few pieces from this. And what we had on the east pediment, so this piece up top, that's the pediment. What we have is the chariot race. And this particular pediment would have been facing the starting point of the chariot races. That's kind of appropriate, right? These figures are not very interesting. They are standing just like actors in a play, but we will get to see them at the Archaeological Museum in Olympia. Yes, that's in our itinerary, so I'm very excited about that. On the opposite end, on the west, we have the Battle of the Centaurs. I don't know, there was a wedding. Oh, a fight broke out. I don't know. I'm not sure how this happens, but that's what we're seeing here. And we have the god Apollo in the center. He is watching this all go down. He's not stopping it. But it's a symbolism of Greek victory over barbarians and over savage nature. Because remember, the Greeks are all about perfection and beauty. And that's what we're doing here. We're taming it. These are also at the Archaeological Museum. The metopes, right? Remember, what's this here? Yeah, right? So we got the 3, and then we got the panel in between, because remember, this is Doric. Yeah, very good. Someone's paying attention, right? So at this particular place, the metopes featured the 12 labors of Hercules, which, if you remember your history, established the Olympic Games. Like all the different feats. Very appropriate, right? Yes. So these have been salvaged and are also at the museum, and I'm looking forward to seeing those. Now, we're also going to look at something else that no longer exists. The statue of Zeus. which was made by Phidias. And it was supposed to be in the Temple of Zeus, and it was 65 and a half feet tall, and it was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And what we have here is a standard representation of the god, and winged victory is in his hand. Why does it no longer exist? I don't know how, but at some point, they took this colossal piece to Constantinople, and it burned in a palace fire. So, we're not going to see this, but you should know. You should know about it. We will be seeing Phidias's workshop, though. So this was the what's left of it. We're going to see what's left of it. This guy here is arguably the greatest Greek sculptor in the classical world. And at his workshop, they found tools, they found molds, they found cups, all of these things bearing the inscription, "I belong to Phidias." It's very cool. I know, right? We also found replicas of Zeus, like small models. So that's how we know that he created that monumental sculpture. Okay? Then we're going to scoot on over to Athens, and we're going to check out the Acropolis. Now, what you need to know about the Acropolis was it was destroyed. I know. Not once, but twice. So under Pericles, reconstruction of the Acropolis started. The Persians actually destroyed the Acropolis. And this was a massive project. And funds came from the Delian treasury. Ooh, exciting, right? Some of the notable buildings that we're going to look at are the Parthenon, the Temple of Athena, the Propylaea, the Erechtheion, and all of these exist from the 5th century. Not the first time it was destroyed, but the rebuilt. I want to say that we are in like the classical period here, but you will actually see a whole bunch of different styles and different time frames here, because it was destroyed and rebuilt, and then throughout its whole history, things were being added on and destroyed. So it's classified as classical, but it isn't all classical, if you care, right? So we have the Parthenon here with that fabulous architectural formula that we looked at. We do know the names of the architects. But what's really interesting about the Parthenon is that it has 2 orders. It's Doric and Ionic. So both characteristics are actually represented in one building. It also served 2 functions. It was both a treasury and a temple. The temple was dedicated to Athena, and it served as the city treasury. So all the good stuff in one place. In later years, it was used as a church and a mosque. So 6th century Christian church, and then 15th century, it was a mosque. So after the Ottomans came to Greece, they're like, hey, there's a mosque now. So why not? What we have inside here, what's really exciting, is something else that no longer exists. The Temple of Athena. This particular temple was dedicated to Athena Parthenos, the Virgin. Yeah, right. We saw the pottery. We saw what was really going on. This is another colossal statue by our man Phidias. It had a wooden core, and then it was covered in gold and ivory. This one wasn't as big as Zeus. It was only 38 feet tall. No big deal. It is located in the cella of the Parthenon, and the whole structure was actually designed and built around her. And like I said, she no longer exists, but Huh? Okay, so this is a reconstruction, but they have ideas what she looked like based on the models that they found in Phidias's. Right, so it's the same concept as Zeus. I'm sure there's like some artistic licenses here, but this is the idea. The pediments from the Parthenon, also built by Phidias. And these, well, okay, so he was like in charge of the project. He didn't make every single one because, that would take a whole lifetime. But he employed other artists, and they were created on the ground and then lifted into place. That sounds horrible, right? On the west pediment, we see the battle between Athena and Poseidon. Why? Because they're fighting over who controls the city. Who controls Athens? Athena, right? Yes. Right? Spoiler alert. So on the east side, we see the birth of Athena. And then this is kind of a reconstruction of what the pediments would have looked like. All these pieces were found on the ground. How did they end up on the ground? Well, there was a war between the Ottomans and Venice. The Ottomans used the Parthenon for munition storage. And you guys can see where this is going, right? The Venetians bombed the site, and everything else went up, right? So it destroyed, for the second time, the Parthenon, and killed 300 people, which is also, don't get me wrong, it's tragic, but the building is also fairly destroyed too. Took out the roof, most of the walls, and all the marbles on the pediments, they fell. And then we have this guy here, Elgin, the 7th Earl of Elgin, Thomas Bruce. He came in, right, all the stuff was on the ground, and he's like, I'm going to take it. It's like, how nice, they already got it down for me. He claimed that he received permission from the Ottomans at that time. Permission is a loose term. After he picked them up, he sold them to the British government. And then they went into the care of the British Museum. And 1817, the British Museum is breaking attendance records because everyone wants to come and see them. These Elgin marbles. So, was this legal? Well, that's kind of the hot topic yet and still. It was actually contested immediately after. So we're looking at 1816. There's already some contention going on. 1835 is the first time that Greece requests them back. Okay, and now what did the British Museum say? No, we're not done looking at it, right? So that's the joke, right? 2009, they also, part of this was, we can take care of them and you can't. Because it was destroyed twice under. We have a museum for this stuff where they will be taken care of, they will be loved, they will be appreciated by the public. So no, you can't have them back. But now, skip ahead, 2009, they have a wonderful state-of-the-art museum called the Acropolis Museum. So Greece says, hey, we can take care of them now, give me back my baby. British Museum is, we're not done looking at it, right? So that's what's going on right now in the museum world. So one of the other structures that we have here is the Propylaea, which is the entrance to the Acropolis. And this particular structure, its whole purpose is to separate the secular from religion. So you like city, religion. Right here is like the true dividing line. This particular structure was built on a very steep slope, so the structure is divided, very visibly divided into the east and the west. There's a fabulous ramp for chariots and animals, and then the sides are for pedestrians. The interesting thing here, we have two orders again. Doric on the outside, Ionic on the inside. This structure was never finished. So, we're going to see things that don't exist, and we're going to see things that were never completed. Yeah! Thank you, Peloponnesian War, right? Only one wing was completed, and they don't know what this wing was intended for. But when the Romans came in, they said, we're going to use this as an art gallery. So they put pictures and paintings on easels, and ta-da, first museum. We will also see the Erechtheion, which is another temple dedicated to Athena and Poseidon Erechtheus. And this is all about the battle for the city. So we're going to see the olive tree that Athena gave. We're going to see the mark left by Poseidon's trident. There's the saltwater spring that came forth from the rock when he smote it. Smote it. Anywho, the rock with his trident, spring. Okay. So this is an ionic structure. It's asymmetrical, which is, whoa, yeah, exactly. Yeah, what is going on here? It's asymmetrical to accommodate the uneven ground of the site, but it is the absolute antithesis of the Parthenon. So we've got divided chambers. We've got Athena in the east. In the west, we have different shrines and tombs. The fun thing about this is that the frieze is actually a dark blue limestone, which is a really nice contrast to the white marble. So I'm very excited about seeing this, what's left of this. But also the caryatids. This is what people come to see. This is the architectural support in the form of a female figure. We have a rigid support, but we see the contrapposto weight shift, right? So the whole structure, the supporting weight, is in that straight leg, and this is just decoration. So we've got a balance between form and function. Now, these are fake. The originals are at the Acropolis Museum. Okay, but what do these figures look like? Like, give it a few hundred years in between. Do you remember the figure of the Kore, the man and the woman in the peplos? Whoa, upgrade, right? She grew up. All right, so now we're going to jump ahead to the late classical. So this is after the Peloponnesian War. Athens is defeated and Sparta's on the rise, right? This is also the time period of Alexander the Great, his daddy, Philip, Macedon, right? It's all coming back now. The style becomes individual. We're starting to see a shift away from the ideal. So perfect beauty, we're going to individualism. We're focusing truly on realism and the real world. So we're starting to see gods and deities humanized. Same with athletes and heroes. We also see the introduction of Corinthian, which is the super ornate. This is where it's at, right? So we've got the leaves, the tendrils, the flowers, and this is the capital from the Tholos, which is like a circular structure in Epidaurus, which is where we're going. See how this transitions, right? So this particular site is home to a shrine, and it's dedicated to the god of medicine. And this developed out of the occult to Apollo, and this was the place to go. If you were sick or you needed healing, you're going to go here. So they're going to spend the night, right, in the giant sleeping hall, and they're going to hope that a vision from above comes and tells them what they need to cure or give them advice. So, I don't know, do you think we'll have time for a quick nap? Right? But it is also home, to this theater. Whoa, right? And why is this so impressive? Look at the perfect geometry of that theater. It still works. Like, they still hold events here, and my understanding is that you can still hear just perfectly. And it has this wonderful, lush, green backdrop, right? And that guy in that little circle right there in the center, that's where you want, and you will be heard. 14,000 people is what I understand that it fits, yes, which is impressive. Also in this time, this guy comes on the scene. His name is Praxiteles, and he's like, females, but nude. Yeah, right. He's got a thought, right? He's got an idea. So he is the first to sculpt a nude female life size. Normally, nudity was reserved for slave girls and the courtesans, like you remember the sexy parties. Oh, yeah. So the nudes that were there, prostitutes, right? Slave girls, okay? Certainly not gods and goddesses, right? So this is Aphrodite. And what we see here, that solid marble stone is now soft, radiant flesh, and she's very sensuous. And she's bathing, right? Oh, my word, right? And we see something very interesting start to appear here. This hand, this is the pudica gesture, right? Your pudica. So we're hiding it. But also we're going to start to see some ideas of sensualizing my sexuality class, like, where's that hand going? Oh, how dare they, right? We will also, I think this piece is actually still in Greece. So we have, Nope. Why? It's all for the gods, baby. Yeah. So what we see here is Hermes, and he is dangling some grapes here and here. We got all sorts of dangling going on. In front of, like, the little baby god of wine, right? We also have a really striking S shape there. Again, the contrapposto is still in play here, actually really exaggerated. But we see a tender moment here between the man and the baby god, which is something that we haven't seen before. So this is really exciting. So we're starting to see emotion. This is beauty that we can aspire to, but not achieve. Okay? But with that, gods and goddesses are starting to become part of the human experience. Like, we can all relate to that tender moment between our child, I guess. I can't, but, like, human connection. Right? So that's what we've got going on there. We're going to skip ahead to Hellenistic art. So Alexander the Great has died. Cleopatra has died. Oh, it's terrible. I know, right? Sorry to bring that up. Right? But what we're doing here is we're breaking all the rules. We're capturing motion and emotion, and there's drama, right? And we're stirring it, right? So scale of structures really start to increase. We're seeing our old favorites, like our subjects, but they're being depicted in new ways. So we have battered athletes. So not the victorious golden god athletes. No, we're going to see like elements of struggle and defeat here. And the goddesses are getting real erotic here. Yeah. But we're also going to start to see new subjects like dying Gauls and old women. Ew. Right? This is actually one of my favorite pieces. This is in Rome, because Rome loves Greek art, so they took it. But this is the dying Gaul. So we see a defeat of a barbarian here, right? And look how pitiful he is. Ugh. Sexy, but he's pitiful, right? And then we have Nike here, right? Winged victory. So what's happening here? She's descending from heaven in the middle of a storm. We've got this wet t-shirt contest going up here. But then down here, everything is flowing and swaying, and there's beautiful folds. So how is she wet and dry at the same time? I don't know. She's making me question my sexuality, right? Okay. And so we're looking at this, and wow, hot, right? So hot. But this piece is actually commemorating a naval battle. Yeah, you totally get that, right? Also, because we like drama, we see hermaphrodites come in play. Okay, so we have this absolutely beautiful female figure for our pleasure, right? We've got a fabulous butt, and our hips are rotating, and they're saying, come here, walk around. And when we do, we walk around, oh, she's got a penis. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes. And this is actually a Roman copy because the Romans, they just love this. They just ate this up. Right? Yeah, so again, that shock, the drama. Also, hermaphrodites were considered very differently back in society. If you were a hermaphrodite, you had it made, right? Because you had the best of everything. And you could go around flashing people as for good luck. For good luck or to ward off evil spirits. It's called the Balbo Gesture. So there you go. Well, I don't want this. Get out. Did it just say it blocked activity? How dare it? All right, so we're also going to see Hadrian's Gate. So this particular structure was built to honor the Roman Emperor Hadrian, right? Because Rome's coming in. They're seeing all this stuff. They're like, oh, I like what's going on there. Okay? So this particular gate is marking the ancient part of Athens, so the old, and Hadrian's new city. And it is actually inscribed on the wall saying, this is Hadrian's and not Theseus city. And it's Corinthian, so actually there's two different styles going on there. But it is 60 feet tall. The entrance is 20 feet wide. We're going to see it. So yeah, we've got Rome coming in and Greece just kind of peters out, right? So what did we learn? Well, we covered a little bit of everything tonight. We learned about the importance of the narrative. We've got standards of beauty and how it changes. And the ancient world was full of sex and color. And it's the foundation of modern Western art. That's it. Any questions? That was a lot. I know, that's something. Thank you. You're only going to retain 20%. That's so. 20% or less. So that's why it's important that we learn about these things before we go to the places, because you'll know just a little bit. You'll get 20% more, and by the time we leave Greece, you'll be at 40%. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Any questions for Annika right now? You're going to go home. Well, and we've got several librarians here who could suggest good resources. Well, this is the break time, folks, and then I'd like to go into a little bit about the